I spent over 500 hours getting certified and probably 1,000 more after that teaching in studios. But as of late last year, I decided to take a step back from teaching full-time. Not because I don't love Pilates or love teaching Pilates anymore, but because life changed in a few ways and I had to find a way to keep Pilates a meaningful part of my life outside of teaching full-time. So in this video, I'll walk you through a little bit more about my process after I finished my Pilates teacher training, what I did next, how I integrated everything I learned during the process into my daily life, even though I don't currently teach full-time, and what's next for me as I move into a new season. Hello, lovely people. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Amira. I'm a certified Pilates instructor, and around here we make content about mindful productivity, self-care, and building systems to support an intentional life. So let's get into it. So the first topic I'm going to touch on is what I did after certification. So right after my certification, I started teaching immediately thereafter, pretty much part-time first, and then I transitioned into full-time hours. I learned so much during this time period, right? How to adapt on the fly, how to craft my lesson plans and adapt those classes for different populations, and just basically getting into the rhythm and getting acclimated to the lifestyle of a Pilates instructor. It stretched me in the best ways, right? My confidence grew. I am naturally an introvert, right? I can yap your ear off, right? To you, of course, and to my closest friends and family. In terms of like presenting myself to the public, I am a little bit more reserved, not necessarily shy, but just reserved, right? Pilates really kind of catapulted my public speaking skills, for sure. My ability to think on the fly, articulate, and communicate clearly to others in a way that they understand. And of course, I also genuinely love the feeling of helping people feel more connected, right? Getting stronger, seeing the results that they came in to get. So I loved connecting with people and being a large part of their health and wellness journey that way. But eventually I did decide to return to a corporate role, mainly because I wanted to get a little bit more experience in the field that I'm currently in now. Also, the insurance benefits are also very enticing. I need that. I'm not gonna lie and say that benefits and stable, consistent income were not a part of that as well. But for the first few months in my new corporate role, I was still teaching part-time as well. At the first studio that I was ever hired at, one of those kind of smaller boutique studios with a smaller, more intimate clientele, I was still teaching there on the weekends primarily. But long story short, right after moving a little bit farther away than the studio, and really for most of the studios that I was teaching at, I decided, look, the miles are not miling. It just didn't really make sense to, commuting for that length of time. So I made the decision to A, step away, but also B, invest in my own equipment at home. Next, we're gonna go into what I actually learned teaching. So teaching Pilates, as I said before, gave me so much, right? Helped me find my voice, helped me become more comfortable in my voice, right? Using my voice. It boosted my confidence in group settings and helped me generally feel so fulfilled in helping people connect to their bodies, feel at home in their bodies, right? There's something just so special about, getting feedback from a client that they're, feeling stronger. They left the session feeling so much better than when they came in. Getting comments that people really enjoyed my classes, and even clients that I've been working with kind of over a longer period of time, right? A year plus, seeing how they've transitioned and progressed throughout the time that I've been working with them has been really fulfilling for me. So that was honestly like the highlight of my experience, really. Now, like anything in life, right? It wasn't all smooth sailing, unfortunately. There were also parts of teaching that I wasn't necessarily fond of, and mainly not necessarily the teaching itself, but more so the structure built around the classes, right? So more so the business and how the, staff and admin were operating some of the places that, right, I taught at. And again, this was really studio specific, really just one studio that I worked at. They were nice for the most part, but things just kind of felt disorganized, and mainly like how they handled the schedule and the booking. I just feel like the levels of communication between the staff and the instructors and even the clients themselves was a little bit less than ideal. We didn't really have access to like a calendar of sorts. We should have been able to kind of log into a system. Like some of the other studios that I worked at, we can actually see what our, schedules looked like, particularly because this studio, our hours comprised of mostly privates, particularly in the beginning. So there were times when the clients would maybe cancel maybe a day or two prior, and we wouldn't get a call. Like we were supposed to get a call essentially every morning or maybe the night before, but sometimes they ended up not calling us, right? So you would go in and then be like, oh, like what happened? And then like the staff member goes, oh, like they canceled like yesterday or 2 days ago. But you didn't think to call me and let me know? I ended up feeling like I was wasting precious time. And you know me, right? Type A girly. I like to use my time wisely. I often found myself thinking of ways that I could, you know, make that process more efficient. Some of those examples, in my opinion, I just told you, like giving the instructors access to the schedule. There were a lot of ways where I feel like we could have saved time, you know, streamlined scheduling and made things more supported for not only the instructors, but also the clients, the paying clients themselves. Eventually, I just realized that I needed stability, especially with all the other things in my life that I had going on. Honest life update about where I am right now. Essentially, when I got certified, I imagined life would look a little bit different than how it actually was. A consistent schedule, steady studio shifts, loads and loads of clients, predictable income. But that's not always the case, right? Especially because I'm in like a smaller suburb. The closest like larger metropolitan city is like, you know, Fort Lauderdale, Miami. That's a little drive for me. And I would imagine, right, it's not the case for every instructor, particularly if you have access to those like larger cities, or maybe just a large amount of studios concentrated where you were. And also the variety of studios where you were, right? For me, there were a lot of, you know, the franchise studios, but not too much of those like smaller boutique privately owned studios. So that was something, you know, I imagine, right, if you're in Miami, LA, New York, you're probably living the good life, right? You have a lot of access to different types of studios. You can feel out, like, do you like working here? Is this commute make sense for you? You can probably maybe build, particularly if you start to, you know, build up your longevity at a studio, you probably have the prime time hours. You can build a really stable schedule at maybe 1 to 2 studios rather than, you know, piecemealing different hours together. But again, in my area, the ability to build a full-time schedule at the studios that I would have liked to, those opportunities didn't really come by as much. Honestly, I just wasn't really willing to drive very, very long distances in order to patch together a weekly schedule. So what I'm doing now, right, I've said that I've had this corporate role for about the last year. Actually, it's been a year almost down to the day that I'm filming this. I obviously create content on the side, and that includes like Pilates content on my equipment. And I still do Pilates regularly. That's something that I incorporate into my, you know, daily habits, daily practice. And that's currently what's just feeling good for the season, right? And we're not doing too much. We're still keeping our Pilates chops up, right? I'm still doing Pilates. And, you know, occasionally I will have people come over. I teach them. So I still keep up my teaching chops that way. However, the amount of diverse bodies that I'm obviously exposed to has decreased since I stopped working in studios full time. But at the end of the day, it's a skill that I'll always have, right? It's like riding a bike. Once I move again and get more settled, I'm sure I can like scope out the Pilates scene and just see what the studios are looking like. And then of course, pick up a few shifts, maybe get on their substitute schedule. That would be nice. So it's definitely not the end of teaching. I think this is such a good skill to have in your back pocket. Even if you don't make Pilates your full career, I think that there are just so many ways to incorporate Pilates teaching. And for me, like on a part-time freelance basis, I just find is chef's kiss. As for teaching online, I do think about it a lot. So I love channels like Flow with Mira, that's my girl. Real Good Pilates, I believe is her channel name. I don't know her actual name. Pilates Body Raven, that's also my girl. So if you didn't know, I started this channel by actually posting Pilates videos, right? Just kind of short little flows while I was in teacher training. And I still have some of those videos up. They're kind of some of my oldest videos that I have on here, so you can check back if you want to see. But essentially, I am big on consistency, right? If I ever choose to launch long form classes, which honestly does appeal to me so much, but I want to do it right, okay? I want to commit to it long term. Just in terms of bandwidth, like that's not something that I have the bandwidth to, you know, commit to consistently. But if I did have the space, that would definitely be something that I would love to do. You know, blending content creation, right, with Pilates. That's a match made in heaven, but unfortunately short form is all I got for now. And a little bit more on how I currently practice and plan my workouts. So as I said, these these days I use my at-home studio setup to move my body in a way that feels good, right, and sustainable for my physical and mental health. So that's been the number one thing for me. You know, it's been great doing my little Pilates anytime workouts like at lunch. So I do work hybrid, right? I'm hybrid remote. I do my morning hours, right, and then I can take that lunch break and then just head downstairs, get a quick workout in, and then make myself a little lunchtime smoothie afterwards, come back upstairs and finish my workday. So that's been very nice. And in terms of like planning workouts and even kind of content as well, I use a version of the tools that I built in my Train and Thrive Pilates Teacher Companion Hub, my Notion pack that I just released for student and newly certified Pilates instructors. I've been using a version of that class planning template on there to just kind of lay out my class flows, and maybe I can make a video on that in the future. But essentially, if I don't feel like doing a Pilates anytime workout, I'll literally just kind of whip one up there. I still think it's kind of fun to plan workouts and do them myself. And I used to do this like all the time when I was actually teaching, you know, part-time, full-time. I would plan my workouts in a version of that class planning template. So it's just been nice to kind of stretch that creative muscle still. And in addition to my class planning database, I literally reference my repertoire that I built during my PTT process, particularly if I, you know, forget an exercise or haven't done an exercise in a long time, just to kind of check my breathing is correct, my form, etc. So that's been useful. I still have all of that information. And also it's been interesting to like kind of go back and forth between, you know, my repertoire and Pilates Anytime, because as you know, if you use that app, Pilates Anytime has a host of instructors from different programs, right? So it's interesting to see like the differences between how a certain exercise is taught at Bassi versus like a STOT or Balanced Body, etc. So that's been interesting as well. And it's gonna be cool when I eventually do go back to teaching part-time, substitute, freelance basis. It'll be cool to make use of that hub for myself. I've had the best time creating these systems, creating this template for students and newly certified, those who are looking to find a program, right? All of that in one template. And I've gotten some really just beautiful feedback, some testimonials that I've included on the page as well, both from instructors who are currently in their training program and from instructors who are newly certified and using the more like client tracking feedback brag book section. So safe to say that I thought of everything because I literally went through the process. So I'm glad that people are liking it as well. So what's next, you may ask? Well, that's a good question. Moving forward, of course, if you have any other questions about the process or about my process in particular, you could always find me on Instagram in the comments on any of my Pilates related videos, or go ahead and email me. That's totally fine as well. In the future, I'll be sharing more about how I balance routines, plan content, execute content, and just build systems that support me while I'm in this transitional period. If you couldn't already guess, right, this channel is all about systems, right? Systems and mindfulness and mindful productivity. Just finding a way to kind of blend all those things together throughout my life stages, right? As a Pilates instructor, I built systems around that because that was something that I did. And moving forward, it's gonna be the same thing for each kind of stage of my life, whether it be, you know, engagement and wedding planning, whether it be going back to school and systems that I'll have to build around that. Basically just things that I'm really a nerd about, right? Routines and rituals and wellness. You already know that I've talked about resets and goal setting. I love watching that kind of content. So that's the content that I gravitate towards. So you'll definitely see a lot of that from me moving forward. But rest assured, my Pilates community, right? Whether you're a new trainee, a certified instructor, or you're an enthusiast who just loves them some Pilates, you are always welcome here. Chances are, if you're into Pilates, you're into like wellness and self-care and mindfulness as well. So we'll fit right in. And even as the content shifts a little bit, you are still welcome here. So yeah, that's where I am right now. Basically not in the studio every day, but still committed to, you know, learning and growing in my Pilates practice, integrating that as a daily habit into my life, and finding different ways through it all to maintain my teaching chops so I don't lose them. So whether you're thinking about going through teacher training, currently in a program, or you're certified and kind of don't know what your options are, you're figuring out your next chapter, whether to go part-time, full-time, etc. I hope that this video was helpful, at least in some way, kind of giving you a little taste for the options that are out there once you get certified. There are so many valid ways to carry this work forward and make it fit, make it work for you. So it doesn't have to look one specific way. So I'm curious, let me know in the comments how your specific Pilates journey has evolved over time. Are you currently teaching, taking a little breaky break, or figuring it out like the rest of us? And if you want to stay organized during your training, if you're currently undergoing training or thinking about undergoing training, or you just need tools to maintain your Pilates practice, go ahead and check out the Train and Thrive Pilates Teacher Companion Hub. It's the system that I basically use to track my hours, organize my class plans, and reflect on client feedback, just in like a prettier version for you. I'll leave that linked down below. I still believe we have our little promotional $20 off code going on at the time that this video is being filmed, and probably at the time that this video will be released. So go ahead and check it out. And if you're new here and want to see how I'm weaving in Pilates, wellness, and mindful systems into this next chapter, then go ahead and stick around. I have a video coming out next that shows just that. So go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell so you can get notified when it drops. Thank you so much for watching and chit-chatting with me. I will see you very soon, and don't forget to stay mindful.